Hey there, welcome to episode 117 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 6:34 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here in Greater Vegas on Wednesday, February 4th, 2026. We publish on Wednesday, so perfect. I'm feeling a little NyQuil symptom onslaught coming, so I'm a little tired, but I couldn't sleep. One reason we're here at 6:30 in the morning. Hopefully I'll make it. Hopefully my voice won't go too nutty. I'm totally feeling some sinuses coming into the picture. So we'll see what happens. If you're not familiar with the Quaggling Sand audio program, that is a technical term I coined when I was very young. I think I was probably 5, give or take. It's a term that you would probably find more comfort in using. It's more layperson version, pins and needles. So quaggling sand is the return of sensation to probably your hand or your arm or wherever else where you may have been sitting funny, hilarious perhaps, blocking circulation. So as it comes back, the quaggling sand comes into play. So there you go. The idea is this is an audio essay program where I recall stories and tales and whatnot. They may be entertaining, they may be interesting, useful. They may just help pass the time. Maybe you're on a treadmill, aren't we all? And so yeah, maybe it'll be interesting. The show really doesn't have guests. Pardon me, had to move something. So yeah, no guests, just me solo about, well, today's Random Bits, episode 1-1, or version part 1-1. I don't know. It's 2 bits, 2-1 bits. Random Bits is basically a kind of serialized, like just a bunch of stuff strung together, kind of almost chronologically. There's a little bit of jumping around, but basically chronological. So we're picking up where episode 102 was, and that's what we're doing today, this morning. So yeah, hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a summary, which is 2 sentences, I believe. I'll read that. And then the links for today's episode, the usual. I don't really have anything else to point to. One of these, I guess I could pull up hmc.edu because these are the college years we'll be not going through. We're just going to be starting. I think it's about 2 days. Well, technically it's through orientation, but I don't really go too nutty there. Orientation was fine. There were a couple of odd things, which I do mention, but and then school starts, and then we'll save more of that for Random Bits episode or part 100. So there you go. Let's get started so we can get finished. I'm a little bit fatigued. That may come around halfway through or so. I have some water here. I might need some more. And on that note, summary of today's episode. I am sort of wishing that I had started with the Random Bits 00, which I did not. Binary title numbering now. So 00 as the binary title number, part 00. But as I am feeling ill this morning, I will hope that you, like me, are not really thinking about this or that one. On with the show. Sorry. Some random recollections strung together for our pondering. There you go. So the links, as usual, Quaggling Sand, homepage, quagglingsand.com, quagglingsand.com. Wherever you found this audio program, I'm hoping there should be a link to that somewhere and the email address. One of these days I'm going to get somebody and all of my programming has that. So you should be able to contact media at quagglingsand.com, at ffstalk.com, cafegenius.org. If you ever wanted to be a guest or something, although probably not on this program. The profile page linking everything, as usual, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. I've had that since March of 2021, coming up on 5 years. It's a free-form link tree of sorts. I have links to all of my audio programs. I have links to various projects I'm working on. I have some affiliate links. You do not need to buy me a coffee. You do not need to click on anything if you don't want to. No paying required, but if you want to, you can. And everything, any proceeds that come in through there will go towards coffee, which is what powers everything. You've probably read that somewhere. And as well, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo/posts is where you will find the Monday morning update, the Buy Me an Update audio program. It used to be published there exclusively, but now it's also published where everything else is. So Spotify, Amazon, whatnot. But it shows up there first. You'll also find Coffee Solo linked from there and all kinds of good stuff. I should probably update that page with whatever else is going on lately. We'll get there. So on with the show. I can feel already I'm getting like a headache. Sorry for complaining. So the bits, the random bits, but the bits for today's episode. So in our previous episode, number 102, we left off with some jobs in high school. That was Sunny Slope High School in Phoenix, by the way, Arizona. An older campus with a small student body by comparison with newer campuses around the country. I think there were some of the newer schools in the Phoenix area were easily 2 or 3 times as many students. It was nuts. I don't know about Vegas. I don't really hang out at the high schools so much. That should make sense. As well, at the very end, a little mention of the episode, a little mention of the VW Bug that had been carting me around town, getting to and fro my high school jobs and whatnot. That was a different kind of car and a very different time without seatbelts. It did actually have like ripped up and awful seatbelts. So I figured, I'll just take them out and I'll replace them. But then I was like, well, do I really need seatbelts? Remember, it was a different time. It was the mid 80s. The car was a 1970 Volkswagen Bug. So no seatbelts, without a working horn eventually, without a working ignition switch in the column. So I had to fix those with a software engineer's thinking. So it worked good enough. It was, I tried replacing the switch in the column and it just didn't fit because I got like a later model and electrically it was fine, but mechanically it didn't fit into the column housing. So I ended up making 2 high current toggle switches. One would turn on the power, which is usually when you put the key in, you turn it. And then when you turn it over to start, you turn it additional, you turn it more. So that was the starter switch. So I had two toggles, one power on, one engage starter. So I would engage the starter and then I would flip it back to off so that the car would start. It was on my way. I also added some sliding switches so I could turn the headlights on individually and off. And yeah, I didn't actually replace the seatbelts ever. The interior of the car was kind of a mess, but it ran. It never let me down that I can remember anyway. I don't think it did. Getting into college mode. So now we're caught up. Getting into college mode was a thing around the end of the best years of our lives until graduation. Then everyone, hopefully, they must be realizing it, even today, hopefully, that the notion is not true at all. Nothing about high school was the best. Come on. I had taken the ACT and SAT exams, and my SAT score was the median for the incoming class at Harvey Mudd College my year, where I was accepted and which I attended. Nothing wrong with that. I didn't set the curve, but I also didn't fall below it, so fine. And as it turns out, your SAT scores, the moment you get into any school, no longer relevant. So, doesn't matter. I also had my full ride scholarship from the United States Air Force ROTC program. After 4 years of AFJ, that's junior ROTC, I think I've talked about that a lot in previous episodes. I would have to take the classes at USC, but we'll get into that in a future episode. So I was going to Harvey Mudd. USC, University of Southern California, was, for someone without a car, was an extra long drive or a very long walk. That was sort of a big deal that I had that scholarship. There was a little presentation at some point, probably during graduation. Our graduation was actually in Sun City, kind of a ways away from where our campus was, at a place called the Sun Dome, if I'm remembering correctly. And if memory does serve, it was a bit of a pipeline. So we had to do the thing. Thank you, next. Diploma, handshake, next. Throw the mortar board up in the air. Try to collect it again. Okay, everybody outside. Do your post-graduation cavorting. So yeah, it was like a pipeline. So we had to do the thing, and then everybody had to go outside and hang out with the parents and the friends and the photo opportunities and the goodbyes and whatnot. Another school was filing in right behind us, and the day continued. So I don't remember it, but I'm almost positive that, well, you know what? Actually, they may have used different parts of the outside parking lot as opposed to the inside parking lot. The parking lot, I think they had different sectors or something. So like we were over here, maybe the next school was 2 spots over, and then whatever, doesn't matter. So that was it. We were done, uh, or just starting. Another school was finally in. Continued, not quite the football field that had been where graduation took place every year prior. So ours was the first year to do this. And while indoors was nice during the festivities, we were still outside later, outdoors, and it was still warm. I mean, it was June. I think it was June. It was, Phoenix. It's hot. It's always hot in the summer or near the summer. So it was still hot, but I guess everybody was happy. I don't know if they still do that. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Here's a fun fact that unfolded just at the end of my time at Sunny Slope High School. As my time was approaching, my end of days, there was this kid named Mike Bloom, that's Ume, so Bloom, Blume. You could probably Google him. Michael Bloom, Blume, Phoenix. That would have been like 1990, 91, 92, somewhere in there. And he drove a nice white Volkswagen Bug. That was cool, I guess. I don't recall the model. I mean, it was a Volkswagen Bug, but it might have been a Super Beetle or something. I don't remember. But I think it was a convertible. It might have been an aftermarket convertible. I don't recall. He had a vanity license plate on the vehicle that said WHT-PWR. So that's white power if you were not keeping track. Eventually, he shaved his head and went all in on the rhetoric and whatnot. And I think shortly after I was off to college, he got arrested for some violence somewhere, maybe some explosives or something. Good riddance, I say. Good riddance. The thing is, he was in AFJ-ROTC also, a couple of years behind me. I think he was 2 years behind me. Interesting times back then, definitely. I will also say, I don't know if I mentioned this, but there were 2 occasions. I think it was 2. There was definitely one. This kid named Troy. I think Troy didn't make it too long after high school, but I used to get there very early in the morning, and sometimes they'd have like a hot chocolate and a whatever in the morning. Like you could buy a donut and getting ready for office jobs. And so Troy was there. Troy was also an AFJ-ROTC, by the way. And he says, "Hey, you want to see something?" And he there was like the main compartment of his backpack. So it was deep, right? Not the outer with the pockets and whatnot. So he reached in there and pulled out, it looked like a 38 revolver. And he's like, "Yeah, I got to be careful." I'm like, "Yeah, me too." So, yeah, I don't think he made it. I don't know why. And then there was this other guy, Brian. He always had something troubling on him. A super smart guy and actually pretty funny. Like, we got along fine. I would say we were actually kind of friends, but I don't know what, he could have snapped at any moment. Who knows? Somebody said he had a minefield in his backyard at wherever he lived. Who knows? He was not in AFJ-ROTC. I was at home working on some paper or some final thing. It was coming down to the wire before we were getting ready to graduate. I was wearing a Harvey Mudd t-shirt of all things, a black one. I got the call that I was accepted. I was on the wait list, you see, for what that's worth, but I had only applied to Harvey Mudd College. So if it did not work out, if it did not work out, if it did not work out, well, that would have been fun. That's a rarity that I wish happened more often, that things just came together like that. To be fair, to be honest, I basically had the Regent scholarship for Arizona State. So I probably would have gone there and figured out what to do next. So I could have got the freshman year local, go next, whatever. But got the call. I think I mentioned the summer job thing already, but summer in Phoenix is tricky, but it would be the summer after my first year in college, also in Phoenix. That was actually interesting. I got my first programming job, programming in the C programming language. So first of all, the place that gave me the summer job, the owner was a friend of my mom's, I think. Yeah, I think it was my mom's. And he would hire all of his kids and their friends and whatnot. So the whole place was like overflowing with young people. I think I was the only college student. Everybody else was like in high school or junior high school. The company was called iPro, no longer around as far as I know, or not in that form. The whole thing was scanning legal documents on Bell & Howell monochrome scanners. Actually, they were grayscale. And so they're very nice resolution. I mean, today your phone is probably 2 or 3 times. But for legal documents, black text, white background, white paper, totally really, really good copies of documents. So every day, more legal file folder boxes or whatever would come in with just tons and tons of legal documents, and the kids would just run them through the scanners, and then they would archive them on what's called, back then it was called a worm drive. Write once, read many, the precursor to like CD-ROM. So there you go. You could back up all your documents and store them on this. It actually looked like maybe 3 CDs stacked up. It was about that thick, a little bit bigger, but that's the idea. A worm cartridge that would go into the worm drive. So that was it all day. My job though, so I went to interview, and he said, do you know the C programming language? And I said, no. Sadly, Harvey Mudd was teaching Pascal until I think the following year, or maybe I think the following year. So maybe it was 2 years after I got there, they switched over to C. Pascal was still useful, but not practical. Good for teaching, not for getting a job. So he said, do you think you can learn it in 2 days? And I said, yeah, of course. And I did learn it in 2 days. And actually, and I think I've talked about this before, the process of learning it, they kind of just gave me an IBM PC XT, 4 megahertz. I think it was 8088. And they said, yeah, just go, we need you to work on this project. And then this other, so they gave me 2 things to work on. They said, yeah, just go learn C, and you can practice, you can build stuff and see what happens. So I basically learned C by compiling code and then stepping through it with an assembly debugger and a source debugger, so I could step through both. So I would watch stack manipulations, heap allocations, jumps, pass, all the stuff. And it was, I don't know if it was the best possible way to learn C or if it was the worst possible way, but it was definitely hands-on. It turns out C would be super useful throughout my career with embedded stuff, and basically every job I had was basically C all through my Silicon Valley years. So if you knew C or PHP and whatever for web silliness, but the C programming language was doing a lot of work, and so was I. But I don't know if you're familiar with the C programming language. You will always be learning it. It's really hard to get like mastery of it. Like, okay, I know everything, because aside from the fact that there's been some extensions and some updates to it over the years. I was doing this in the summer of 1990. So it was probably still, was there a C90? I don't remember. I think it was the original K&R. But there have been some things added to it. But C is one of those things that's got a lot of traps, a lot of things that if you're not paying attention, you can run into trouble and whatnot. So my code was horrible, but it worked. And I watched my code run at the end of the summer. I ran, like, okay, I think it's going to work. And I ran it, and it did its thing. And since they charge per page, all of my summer hours, and I wasn't making a ton of money. It was probably like $10 an hour or something, maybe. So the documents that ran when we let it loose on this huge document store that they had, ran it, and it did its thing, parsing and splitting them up and doing all its things. Paid for my entire summer in this, in the course of like an hour. You got to love working for lawyers, I guess, right? Yeah. So finally, the end of the summer was upon us, and so we put a bunch of things, my worldly possessions, some of them, an oscillating fan. That was a good one. Good call. In my mom's 1988 Honda Civic, it was the sedan. It was actually a really nice ride, and it was a very comfortable ride out to Harvey Mudd. But everything I was bringing for my first day of college fit in this car with room. So if you're familiar with the car, you'd be like, that's it? That's all you're bringing? Yeah. That would not be the case ever again. There would always be more stuff. And we headed to Claremont, California, in fact, which was 354 miles door to door. Even though I did not actually have a car through college. The VW stayed at home. A good choice, actually. That was a good one. I would drive to work in it the summer after when I'd returned. I went to iPro, and that summer was the hottest summer ever. It was 122 degrees Fahrenheit at the airport. It sure felt hotter. And I would dress nicely going to work, button down, some slacks. I know, crazy, unheard of. If you know me, you're like, really? It's true. So I would go home for lunch, And I think I've mentioned this before in a previous episode, but basically, so I would get there in the morning. The temperatures are fine. It's warming up. There would be times in Phoenix when the low was 100, right? So sun is coming up and it's already 100, but the air was cooler. So the temperature at the airport was 100, right? So drive to work, get there. The office was full of computers and scanners and whatnot. So they kept it at like 72 degrees, maybe even 65. I don't know. It was chilly. So I'd walk in and okay, cold. And I was not a coffee drinker at the time. So I'm like, okay, cold. And so 122 degrees. So this day, they're like, it's going to be the hottest day on record ever. They had to ground airplanes and so on. So can't fly above 120 degrees. We don't know what's going to happen. So I don't know why I'm laughing because it was silly. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go home for lunch. It was 5 miles, I think, to go back to my parents' house. So I went outside. So it's 65 degrees inside. And by lunchtime, it's getting, it's up around 118, 120, probably 118. And so I just want you to imagine opening a door where it's 65 degrees or so. Let's say it's 65, I don't know, Fahrenheit. You open the door and it's 118 degrees Fahrenheit. That is, what do we got? 40 degrees is 105 and then another 13. So that's 53 degree difference Fahrenheit. That's warm. It was like a blast furnace. I mean, blast furnaces are hotter, but it was like that. So I drove home. I don't know if you're familiar with the Volkswagen quarter windows. So I turned those in and I would put my sleeve outside so the air would go into my shirt. It was a long sleeve shirt. And I know. It could have gone short sleeve. Dumb. Well, whatever. And then I'd point it because I didn't have air conditioning. Didn't have air conditioning in the Volkswagen Bug. So I'd get home, do my thing, and then I went back to work. And now when you're coming from outside where it's probably getting up to 120 and it's going to be, the high would be around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So I'm heading back around 1 probably. So it's probably 120 and it's still 65 degrees inside. So now I open the door, I go into the office and it was freezing and I was shivering and I felt, I don't know, this isn't good. Didn't feel right. But I survived. And then going home, same thing. So by the time I left, it was probably 5 or 6 or something. It's still feels, the air is very hot, right? Probably at the airport, it's already started to cool down a little bit, but boy, howdy, did it feel like 122 degrees. And that was crazy. So at once the best office to work in that situation with their air conditioning bills paid by them. But also, since I did have to leave and enter the building, that was a little bit stressful, a little strain on the system. It was a good choice to not have a car in college otherwise. So I used it that summer, and then I don't remember if I drove that car again, for better or worse. I mean, it's the way it goes. And what did I do? My sophomore year, I went in the summer. I took a math class, linear algebra, and we'll get to this in a future episode, but linear algebra and differential equations. And that's when I learned that, oh my goodness, ASU is much easier because they teach math in the engineering department. Harvey Mudd, the math department, would teach the math classes. So they're like getting deep into differential equations. So I got over 100% in the classes when I took them at ASU. So that worked out for me. But I would drive out to Tempe in my dad's, I think it was a Citation. Yeah, Chevy Citation. A fine automobile, if ever there was one. So I don't think I drove the Volkswagen again. It was a cool car though. It was a good experience to learn how cars worked, which I have talked about in the past. The 354 miles, was, it was somehow even though I didn't have a car, I would manage to make that journey in either direction under various circumstances, catching a ride with somebody, whatever. And actually I did so after college now and then. I would tack on the Bay Area to Claremont leg, and then I would stop for some Thai food at Sonam Luang, which I've done an entire episode about. And then I would continue the journey on to Phoenix or reverse that, holidays or whatever. That would happen less and less, the traveling home during college, but then I would do it a few times in my Silicon Valley days, for part 1 anyway. Now, I will say that my dad and I had driven out to Mudd before school started. So before the filling the car with very few things to get on the road. the Civic. So we drove in I think my dad had a pickup truck at the time. So he's like, let's go for a campus tour. We'll make sure you get that the wait list. Sorry, the wait list. Make sure they put you on the top, which I guess they kind of did. So that was good. So we drove out to the mud campus. I think we left Phoenix at like 4 a.m. So we knew it did take about 5 hours. We got 5.5 maybe. We arrived and we went and met with the admissions office people, Duncan Murdoch and others. We got a campus tour. I got the tour from Sonny Trin, who I would get to know during my college career. I think he's doing something with surfboards now. He lived in West Orm. So we got the campus tour before I was accepted. There was a stop at Blythe with an E, I think. If you're Mark Blythe, there's no E, my favorite economist from Scotland. So Blythe, I think it's Blythe, Arizona. There might be a Blythe on either side of the border, for all I know. So we would stop at Blythe. That's about halfway at the border. And at gas stations and fast food and whatnot. And there was a requisite stop from that point on, from that tour visit, in either direction for something from Carl's Jr., usually a Western double bacon cheeseburger, at least. Sustenance. Just one of those things. I honestly don't know if I had ever been to Carl's Jr. before, but that became the prize for making it halfway. Good times. The drive itself was very boring, beaten only by the drive from Claremont to or from the Bay Area on Interstate 5. Now you could take the 101 and that would bring you to, you would do the Pacific Coast Highway and whatnot. And it was a very long drive and a little bit windy. Definitely had to pay attention. It was nice. I did it once. That was enough. The 5 is a straight shot. Once you get out of Gilroy, you're basically down by San Luis Obispo. You jump on the 5 and it's about as straight as you can get. And it is a completely uneventful road and journey, which at night would be absolutely challenging to one's ability to stay awake for other people. I was fine. I was driving on that route at one point in the rain, and for whatever reason, the rain was like horizontal. So it was flying into the windshield. And so it was really like rough. So I basically drove next to a semi, and I don't know if he minded as much, like, because you're really not supposed to drive next to semi trailers, right? On the freeway. That could be dangerous if a tire shreds or something. But he had lights and fog lights and whatnot, so I could see much better in the distance. And he didn't like honk at me or try to change lanes into me or anything, so I guess it was okay. I guess he figured it out, right? We were going pretty quick. We were moving. So having that lighting was a good thing. But for the most part, the drive. Now here's a little something. And I really don't think about this much since I don't own a car anymore. But it used to be, and maybe if you're from these times, maybe you will also agree, there used to be tons and tons of bugs that would smack into your windshield, into your bumper, into whatever, right? So whenever you would get somewhere, you're like, okay, now I gotta wipe these off, or get some bug. I can't remember there were these cleaners that would help you, because the bugs would get caked on the front of the car, and then they would be dead, but then all their sticky insides would be on the outside, so that stuff would stick to the car. Now your windshield's all messed up and it's got splat marks front of the car, like the front bumper or something. So you're like, wow, geez. Sometimes at night there would be more bugs, depending on maybe a full moon or something. And then during the day, if I ever drove down on the 5 during the daytime or even in the evening, bug city. That over the years, I don't think that happens anymore. Because I've done cross-country trips, mostly in California, but wherever. I mean, same road. So the same road, almost no bugs. I don't really remember having anything like that post-drive cleanup session. So yeah, I don't know what happened. That's something, maybe, or maybe not. I don't know. So yeah, it's boring, staying awake. So I had cruise control in the first car that I got after graduation. It was a Volkswagen, of course, Jetta 3, a really ugly car, but it drove fine and it had cruise control, which was nice. So driving with cruise control at night, absolute challenge, one's ability to stay awake and on the 5, a real danger when you really think about it. So I didn't really use cruise control that much. Probably that'd be one of the reasons. Like, it's too easy to, like, oh, I don't have to, okay, now I can just kind of chill and you wake up in somewhere. So I tried to avoid doing that. We got to the campus and we were able to park on the street. I think it's Dartmouth, just behind my selected dorm, West Dorm. The grass hill going up to the actual dorm sidewalks was called the beach by some. It's grass, not sand. Since it had pretty good sun exposure for those who wanted to lay out, get a tan at some point, that would happen sometimes. The dorms, which I had seen during my tour, and I found out where I'd be living. So, okay, west, great. They were U-shaped, facing each other. So we'll get to that in a second. So U-shaped and made of a sort of brownish cinder block. There's probably a real name for it, but it's brown. Not like brown, like a brown leather shoe or something, or a leather coat. This was more, almost like darker than beige. I don't know. Not a great color. If you go to hmc.edu, you can probably see what color it was. So the entire campus was actually these cinder blocks. It wasn't until New Dorm and New 2. Yes. New was actually Atwood Dorm. New 2 was actually the Case Dorm. The Case family funded it. But it was actually, originally it was going to be the 7th family. Don't know. That was before my time. But that dorm would typically, like lore, they would call it 7th Dorm. You're like, well, that's the 6th. No, 7th. Haha. So the dorms face each other, like I said, in the quad. Cinder block things. The stuff going on in the buildings was more important, so everybody would freak out about the cinder blocks. But like, how? Don't worry about it. Outside, that's fine. So my mom stayed in town for a day or two, probably a single night when I think about it, but I think it was actually 2 nights. No hovering or anything, just doing her thing. I think we went out for dinner or something. And she met my roommate and his parents, Todd and his parents. And all the parents were in and out, pretty standard. It wasn't like sticking around all week. So West Dorm, to give you a sense, had 88 students on 2 floors, U-shaped, double rooms on the uprights in the U. So if you're you can imagine a U on the ground. So the uprights are not pointing up, but you know what I mean. Excuse me. So if you're standing like in the bottom of the U, on your left and right are two floor legs with doors opening out, kind of like a hotel. In fact, the nickname for West was the No-Tell Motel. Somebody went to Tucson at some point and stole a sign from that place. So, but then I would be living in the fishbowl. So we had a window pointing out into the courtyard. So everybody else had doors pointing out. We had a couple windows, and the fishbowls were the only double rooms on the base of the U. So upstairs, downstairs. So there were 4 double rooms and then a bunch of single rooms for the upper class people would usually pull those. So my mom stayed in town. We did the U and the singles on the bottom of the U. So we had the fishbowl. I had a courtyard in the middle. So hopefully you're picturing all this. And our courtyard, our dorm shaped like a U, faced a dorm that was, its U was facing to us. It was called South Dorm. We were West Dorm. So West and East dorms were the first buildings built on the campus in the 1950s, 55 probably. The school started in 1955. It had 4 students. So they were building the dorms. They probably built it around then. And then there was no classrooms yet. There was no academic part of the campus. So they took classes at the other Claremont colleges, and it was all good. So the West and East, you can imagine, right? East was east of West and so on. Then North Dorm was built, and it was built to the north of East. And again, the U was facing east. So you basically had 2 U's pointing at each other, 2 courtyards, whatever. So of course, South was built to the north of West and to the west of North. And even though it was not south of anything, it was dubbed South Dorm. If you think they made a lot of hay out of that naming scheme as part of the lore, especially during orientation, you would be absolutely correct. Pretty exciting, isn't it? I met my roommate, Todd, which I had no input on, so we were just put together at random. I think he called me. I think he said something like, do you have a fan? Do you have a car? Do you have a whatever? So I think he said he had a mini fridge or something. I'm like, yeah, I don't have that. So good. This was a random selection, a random room. So we had the so-called fishbowl, as I described, which was a double room that faced into the courtyard, as I also described. This was one of two double rooms on the ground floor, and then there were two above it. In that part of the building, with all the other rooms facing the courtyard with their doors, as I said, not the windows. So we had an unusual thing. There were four other single rooms on the other side of the court of the dorm lounge, and their doors would open into the back hall, whatever. So there you go. So just remember, we have a window opening into the courtyard. So anybody walking by or anybody curious, if our curtains were open, you could look in. Isn't that exciting? We were in the ground floor fishbowl. We shared a bathroom with the other double room, two people. So it was Todd and me in the inner double. So we had a common wall with the dorm lounge, which was pretty much in the middle of the building, at the bottom of the U. So it's not like a hub. It's literally at the bottom of the U. And two sophomores, Dan and Jeff, lived in the other side of the tiny bathroom that we shared. So you'd go through the bathroom to get to their room, or you could go in the hallway and go through the normal entrance. They did not seem to enjoy living in West Dorm, but that's life. That's how life goes. And this was all on the first day. There's going to be a lot of stuff in this part of the bit stream, the random bits. So let me set some things up here in this episode, and then we'll do some more, because we're already at 40 minutes or so, 39. So I don't know if my voice will make it. So we're not going to go too crazy. We're basically going to make it to Saturday. So okay. So so we'll set some things up. First of all, there was one wall-mounted trim line phone, if you remember those. So a wall phone. I think it had a number pad, not a dial, and had a really long coily cord and a traditional, like you could probably break a car window with these handsets from the phone company back then. So probably made of Bakelite or something. So very, very substantial phone. I think it was beige or tan or something. It did not match the color of the cinder blocks. So wall-mounted trimline for telephone, and all calls went through a classic switchboard somewhere in a secure and disclosed location. So who knows where it actually was, somewhere on the 5 College campus. That switchboard closed earlier than was convenient. I want to say it was like 10 p.m. or something. I remember that being a problem. I can't tell you exactly when it closed. And I did not have a computer yet, nor did we have really good network access in the rooms yet. That would come the following year, and then it would get even better my junior and senior years. But the switchboard was kind of a pain. So it ends up you really were unreachable for a few hours. And even if you were reachable, we didn't have cell phones or anything. So we're in our room or we're not, and that's it. We didn't have an answering machine. I think we got an answering machine later, but it was pretty much that first year was like, I don't know, until second semester, which we'll talk about. There was the great room swap, but and my next roommate had both of my new roommates had computers, and so we were good to go. And then we could use AOL Instant Messenger for a late night data exchange. And if you ever wanted your parents to do something with technology, like, can't you learn how to use chat? That's how you do it. This is the only way. The switchboard is off. Okay, I'll learn. So AOL Instant Messenger became useful. Wall-mounted trim line. The switchboard closed. We were isolated a little bit for a few hours every day. No cell phones. Now, there was apparently some way to have incoming calls get to the phones at odd times, and I don't even know how Todd knew this. It may not have actually worked, depending on whether the switchboard was actually active or if it, don't know what was going on. So I don't recall the details so much of exactly how that was going to happen, but other than it was a pain that this worked this way. However, one day, and I think it was the second day, it might have been the third day, but I think it was the second day, I was getting to know Dan on the other side there. 2 Dans, me and him. The side with the phone, that was where he and his roommate Jeff lived, sophomores. And by the way, the phone mounted on the wall there was a very short little phone cord plugged into the actual wall jack. Some of those phones would be like, they would have a special phone jack plate with 2 little kind of hooks. They're not really hooks, but so the phone would basically slide onto that. So he wouldn't have been able to do this, what I'm about to say. So there's the phone. We're just having a chat. How are things? What do you do? What are you into? Like, what whatever. So Todd came across through the bathroom. By the way, Todd used to like to take really long showers and the floor would be all wet. So I think he walked through the bathroom and he didn't wear shoes. And I think he kicked water, whatever. Okay. There were a couple things. So he walked through the bathroom and interrupted our conversation, informing Dan that there might be a phone call incoming around 4 a.m. With a friend of his, Todd's, in Russia. I think it was Russia, somewhere over there, would be calling. He said, thanks. So it was just him he interrupted the conversation, said his piece, turned around and walked. He left. He was outside. And this was one of those things that it's just a story that you have forever. So I am standing between Dan to my left and the phone to my right, and I'm facing the bathroom door. Okay. So Todd leaves. Dan gives me this look like, yeah. Like he didn't say anything, but just this acknowledgement. And then he stepped forward in front of me. He grabbed the phone, the little short cable, phone wire that was plugged into the wall. He pulled it out. And that's it. We didn't have to say anything. So there would be no 4 o'clock phone. Yeah, I don't know what that was. Who does that? Yeah, you're going to have to wake up at 4 a.m. and then come and wake me up because I don't know how people work. There was no comment needed. And again, I think it was like day 2, but it might have been day 3. It was during orientation. By tradition, I suppose, orientation for incoming first-year students, they called us frosh, I guess getting away from the freshmen thing, even though our incoming class it's 151 students. I think we had 18 women and the rest were some version of male. But frosh, it would be first-year students. It was the first thing for a few days, getting to know each other, the campus, the life, all that. And, and some events, some social events, and some sort of an evening get together and whatnot. And the actual first day of classes was a Thursday, just before Labor Day weekend. So this meant first classes on Thursday and Friday, and then a long weekend. This was a school of geniuses, clearly. Orientation was actually really interesting. I think more interesting in hindsight. Our incoming class was 151 students, as I mentioned, and rather famously, a thing I may have mentioned previously, but it is definitely reusable. We were all in the main lecture hall with the side hall partitions. So there were 3 lecture halls, 1 big one in the middle, 2 smaller side ones. Partitions, open the partition, you can fit everybody, no problem. So we were in the main lecture hall with everything open, so it's packed. Everybody's in there with the parents and whoever stuck around. Plenty of room for everybody. And I believe my mom did stay, so that's where I was like, I think she stayed 2 nights. The Dean of Students, Michael Capetto, or as my Scottish friend, Matthew, rest in peace, Matt, always a good guy, called him Dean Capito. He asked everyone in the lecture hall, the students, to stand if they were in the top 10% of their graduating high school class, and everybody did. Then he had the 15 students in the front row. They had, you remain standing, everybody else sit down. And then he said, this is what the top 10% of your class will look like this year. So don't expect to be in this group because it's much smaller than you're used to. And that was something to get used to in general. And that was probably the best advice for the orientation and maybe even after, because there was a lot of things about Harvey Mudd that were hard to get used to. If in high school, where I came from, things were pretty easy, right? If you sailed through all your classes, come to Mudd and you're like, oh, this is real stuff, real difficult. But anyway, yeah, the trip to the college bookstore was in order, and let me tell you, those books were ridiculously expensive back then. I know they probably still are. I can only imagine what sort of highway robbery is going on now, though I would also hope that hardcover textbooks are not the main thing anymore. They could charge maximal amount of money, even for used, which was crazy. So here's a teaser. I'm sure I'll talk about this more. The upper class people would have the first crack at selling their books to the incoming frosh if they came during orientation, like the last day or 2, you could start moving into your room and whatnot. So we would make, my 2 roommates and I, so 3 of us would put all our books in a milk crate. And so the first thing I would do when I get there, I'd go grab the milk crate. The books are available. So our sophomore year, we had freshman books. Our junior year, we had sophomore books. So I was a orientation sponsor of the four of us each year. So I was able to get in on that. So we would sell the books. What was it? We'd do, I can't remember. We had basically like a fair price, like somewhere between the used book price and something else. So we got a better deal because if you sell your book to the bookstore at the end of the year, they give you, maybe it was some like between our sale price back to the bookstore, and the used book price. That seems reasonable. So yeah, so we would, it was fine, right? The books were all good. I think we kept one or two. So we sold two, kept two just in case we needed them for reference. Yeah. I don't even know what's going on. Do they still have books for college, or is it all do you read on your phone or something? Yeah. I mean, hardcover textbooks they're fine. They're overpriced. It's a racket. But yeah, we would make use of this when I was a sponsor, and we would do okay. We got some good, again, not taking advantage, but also taking advantage a little bit. Something I learned very quickly, aside from the possibilities of early morning calls from Russia, which I never had to tolerate, that Todd was a fan of sleeping nude. That is always a good thing to find out when you've never met someone. Oh, look at that. Look at those. Okay. He would shake his hair out after a shower, a very long shower, and the bathroom would be sopping wet with water everywhere. He would put on his leather jacket and his wraparound, whatever, Oakley style, but not the knockoffs probably. So his black leather jacket, put on the sunglasses, and then he would look into the mirror straight. I think he would comb his hair out so it was like straight. It was long, like rocker hair, if you know what that means. And then he would do a little headbang forward and back, and you'd hear, and that was his sort of air dry, shake out the water. If he was a dog, he would have been twisting probably, but he was doing the thing. So yeah, now here's the even better bonus, because that was it. He would leave, and I would just lay there and pretend to be asleep, and I'd be like, what am I doing here? So bonus alert, he did not like the curtains closed to our fishbowl at all. So our fishbowl was exactly that. And he got a ton of tinfoil and decorated the ceiling with the tinfoil, kind of crinkly. And he placed a nice red incandescent bulb in the middle of the ceiling. So we had this glowing red, shiny ceiling and whatnot. And nobody made fun of that at all. Maybe 86 people did. It was everything you were thinking it could be and less. We would discover the magic of Carmen the following week. It wasn't even a full week, but a more full, I guess. Carmen, our housekeeper. Yeah. And while she was mentioned by a couple of our dorm mates, the upperclassmen, Joe across the hall was like, have you guys met Carmen yet? We're like, who's that? Oh, you'll know. So we did not meet her during orientation, unfortunately, but that's fine. I have an entire episode about Carmen somewhere in the past. She was all of that and more. She was truly magical, skills and abilities that no one could fathom. Basically, and I think I mentioned this already, but I'll just say she would, and this was, she'll put your stuff on your bed and your roommate's stuff on their bed or their desk or whatever. Like she just knows whose stuff is whose, and she totally tidies up your room for you. And we're like, okay. And the first time that happened, you're like, whoa, how did that happen? Like, we have the same books. We're taking the same classes. How did she know my books would go? How did she know that was my desk? Now, when you think about it, I don't want to spoil anything here, but if you have the same book times two, you just put them on a desk, right? You're going to get that right. But she did more than that. So I'm not totally debunking it. She was still magical. That's the nicest, sweetest person through my college career, no doubt. So I did a whole episode about her. When I had the chicken pox and whatnot, she looked after me. So yeah, all that and more. And the nicest lady in the world, as I said, from El Salvador, in fact. So you can listen to that episode. It was, she was a sweetheart. I have quite a bit of detail in that episode, in fact, so we won't go into this here in the random bits. So this is the final bullet item. My voice is barely hanging on. I'm going to save the FAK and the hockey pucks in the courtyard and whatnot for the next random bits episode. Since that was that we were only 2 days of school in, and then we're on the weekend. So we kicked off school for 2 days. We have a weekend, the first 5 college party at New Dorm. That was the what is it? The 5th dorm built. Atwood I lived in Atwood for my senior year, by the way. So the first college party was in New Dorm. Remember New Dorm and New 2. And we would have West Dorm would have the second of the 5 college parties on the following weekend. That was Wild Wild West. And that was when I heard someone say, well, West Dorm is the social hub of the 5 colleges. And you're like, oh, I guess that's kind of cool. Interesting. I didn't really cover this. I'll just mention this really quickly. I think I had seen the Blues Brothers movie, Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi. And there's a like the chase scene or whatever. So there was like an outdoor picnic type thing, probably on the last day before school started, Wednesday probably. So part of the fun was you'd go get your hamburger or whatever, the dorm cafeteria food, and they would serve it to you on a paper plate on a Frisbee. So now you have Claremont College's Frisbee. So everybody had a Claremont College's Frisbee. So we get back to the dorm and there's 88 Frisbees that are now flying through the air all over the place. And they're playing the Blues Brothers chase music. So just imagine a U-shaped building. There's people on the roof, people on the second floor, people on the ground floor. And there are approximately 88 Frisbees flying all over the place. I was like, man, I wish I had a camera. Of course, today there would be 50 different viewpoints of that. But I was like, okay, this should be fun. And that kind of set the tone. And it would vary wildly for all 4 years. The 3 years I lived in West and the 1 year I was in New Dorm for my senior year. But that was the end of the 2-day week to kick off school. Then the first 5 college party, the New Dorm, New Year's, and then our Wild Wild West, which we did play Cool Modi, obviously. And then the journey through mud, winding and difficult, but also rewarding in unexpected ways, had begun. And that will be the next episode of Random Bits, whenever that comes to be. I'll admit it, Random Bits is a nice way to say, I'm not sure what to talk about today. So here we are, 56 minutes later by the clock. I'm sure that will reduce a little bit to probably like 54, 53 minutes with the truncation of silence. But yeah, there you go. I hope this was entertaining. I hope my voice will continue to make it through the day. It may not. I still feel like a little headache coming on and I'm a little achy, in case you're keeping track. So the nighttime stuffy head, what is it? Stuffy head fever? No, it's, I can't remember the NyQuil symptom. It's coughing, aching, stuffy head fever so you can rest medicine. Is that what I think that's what it is. So I haven't been coughing, but definitely a little bit of congestion. Definitely some aching, headache, stuffy head. Not really. Coughing, aching, stuffy head fever so you can rest medicine. I thought there was a headache in there. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Hopefully this was enjoyable. I know you weren't there, so you're hearing a retelling of a story from literally 1989. So it's 27 years ago. No, it's 26 and a half, I guess. September of 1989. Yeah, that was it. Off to college. Anyway, that's all I got. I'm actually a little bit tired right now, so we'll call it a day. Thank you for listening as always. Don't forget to check out the other episodes of various things. I do a separate episode. I do a new episode. I've never done a best of or cut stuff together and whatnot. I don't even know if I would want to. Just go listen to the episode. So there's so I don't do clip shows or anything. I don't know how Hugo Floss will go when that actually gets going. But yeah, so you can check out all of my various things. They're kind of interesting. I don't know. I've been creating episodes for like normal episodes, plus Buy Me an Update, plus Coffee Solo for a while now. There must be something interesting in there somewhere. So yeah, that's it. I'm literally feeling a little like I need to go sit down. So that's it. Standing desk, by the way, in case you were wondering what that means. Standing desk, microphone, also for standing. Okay. Enough rambling. I'm going to go. Thank you for listening as always. Do check out buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo for the other links and stuff. And you can take it from there. Thank you. Bye-bye.